Most people buying a camper van in 2026 are about to repeat the same $20,000 mistake buyers made in 2020, and those people are still paying for it. I'm talking about depreciation traps, conversion quality nightmares, platforms that look premium but are already aging out of the market, and a handful of safe choices that are actually the riskiest decision you can make right now. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'd avoid and why if I were spending my money today. Not generic advice, specific models, specific problems, specific dollar figures. If you're planning to buy in the next 6 to 12 months, this might be the most important video you watch before you sign anything. The 2026 market. Why this year is different. Here's what most buyers aren't accounting for. The campervan market in 2026 is still digesting the hangover from the pandemic boom. Between 2020 and 2022, used Class B campervans were selling for more than MSRP. People were trading vans like cryptocurrency. That bubble deflated, but it didn't pop cleanly. What we have now is a bifurcated market. Certain platforms are still carrying phantom value from that era. Genuinely strong inventory is sitting at realistic prices. The buyers who win in 2026 are the ones who know the difference. And the worst part? Some of those overpriced vans are still being sold today. And the buyers who lose, they're the ones walking into a dealership with last cycle's research. So, let's get into it. I'm going to break this down by specific things to avoid. Some of them are entire vehicle platforms, some are specific configurations, and at least one of them is going to surprise you. Avoid number 1. Diesel platforms without reliable parts infrastructure in the USA specifically. And the biggest offender right now is the Fiat Ducato base, which most Americans know through the Ram ProMaster. Now, in Europe, the Ducato is a workhorse, rock-solid reputation, 30-plus years of parts availability, dealer network everywhere. I'm not telling European buyers to avoid it, I'm telling them the opposite. But American buyers need to understand something critical. The Ram ProMaster version of this platform has a parts and service situation that is genuinely problematic outside of major metros. I've spoken to full-time van lifers who bought ProMaster-based campervans and found themselves stranded in the American Southwest waiting 10 days for a turbo part. That's not a horror story, that's a documented pattern. When you buy a campervan in the USA, you're not just buying the vehicle, you're buying into a service ecosystem. And right now, the Ram ProMaster ecosystem in rural America is thin. Compare that to a Mercedes Sprinter or a Ford Transit build. Both have dealer networks that blanket North America. Finding a service center within 50 miles of almost anywhere in the continental US is realistic. That's not a small thing. That's the difference between a trip and a nightmare. For European buyers, this calculus completely flips. The Ducato has Fiat professional centers across the continent. In Germany, France, Italy, the UK, you're covered. So the platform isn't bad. The support ecosystem in the US is the problem. Know which market you're in before you buy. Avoid number 2, factory-built builds at used prices from the boom years. This is where I'm going to upset some people, but I'd rather upset you now than have you lose $20,000 in 2 years. There are factory-built Class B campervans, specifically the Winnebago Revel 44E and the Airstream Interstate, that are still being listed at inflated used prices because sellers are anchoring to what they paid during the boom. The original buyers overpaid. Now they're trying to pass that mistake to you. Here's the math. A 2021 Winnebago Revel 44E new had a sticker around $175,000. By 2022, used examples were selling for $195,000 plus. People were literally paying more for used than new because new inventory was gone. Fast forward to 2026, a well-maintained example should be somewhere in the $115,000 to $130,000 range, based on real depreciation math. But you'll still find listings in the $150,000s from sellers who haven't accepted market reality. If you buy at $150K, what should be a $120K van, you have made a $30,000 mistake on day one. That's not a negotiation problem, that's a research problem. The Airstream Interstate story is similar. Incredible build quality, genuinely luxurious. The Mercedes Sprinter underpinning is world-class,
but the residual value from the boom era has not fully corrected on used examples that were bought at peak. If you're buying a used Airstream Interstate in 2026, you need to cross-reference at minimum 3 comparable recent sales before you even entertain making an offer. Now, is the Revel a bad van? Absolutely not. The 4x4 capability is real, the build quality is exceptional, and for serious off-grid buyers, it's arguably still the best factory-built option in the USA. But overpaying for it is avoidable, and in this market, it's your responsibility to do the homework. Stay with me because the next one is the mistake I see smart buyers make most, and it's not about the van at all. Avoid number 4, low-quality conversions dressed up in high-end photos. Here's the one that catches experienced buyers, not just first-timers, people who've done their research, because this trap looks different now than it did 5 years ago. The pandemic boom created an explosion of conversion builders. A lot of them have professional photography, slick Instagram presence, and what looks like premium craftsmanship. Some of them are excellent. A significant number of them are not, and the difference only reveals itself after 15,000 miles and 2 seasons of use. What you're looking for when evaluating a custom conversion is not aesthetic quality. That's the trap. You're looking for systems engineering. Specifically, how are the electrical runs routed and protected? Is the lithium battery bank properly fused and sized for the draw load? Is the fresh water system winterized and insulated for sub-freezing temperatures? Are the structural attachments, beds, seating, storage, bolted into the van's actual load-bearing points, or are they glued and screwed into paneling? Beautiful wood paneling hides a lot of sins, and a $90,000 custom build with a $40,000 electrical system is not the same as a $90,000 custom build with a $12,000 electrical system. They look identical in photos. This is where I'll give you a slightly controversial take. For a first-time buyer, a reputable factory Class B from Thor, Winnebago, or Pleasureway, even with its compromises, is less risky than a custom conversion from a builder you cannot independently verify. The factory build has standardized systems, a warranty structure, and established resale comps. The custom build requires you to either be an expert yourself, hire one for an inspection, or accept unknown risk. The Pleasureway Lexor TS, for example, is not the most exciting build on the market, but it's on the Mercedes Sprinter platform, the systems are proven, the company's been building since 1986, and dealer support is real. That's not glamorous, that's intelligent. Avoid number 4, buying the wrong size for your actual use case. This one isn't about a specific van, it's about the mismatch between what you think you want and what your life actually looks like. I see this most with retirees and families. Retirees who've watched van life content for 2 years and decide they want the full-size Sprinter 170 extended, maximum living space, standing height, the whole setup, and then they get to Southern Europe or the American Southwest and realize they cannot park it anywhere they actually want to be. Narrow Italian streets, packed national park campgrounds with 19-foot limits, urban areas where a Sprinter 170 is a liability, not an asset. Families make the opposite mistake. They go too small because they're worried about driving something large. A couple with 2 kids trying to make a 144-inch Sprinter work for a 6-week European summer trip will be miserable by week 2. There's no negotiating with the physics of 4 humans in 90 square feet of living space for extended periods. The right van for your Instagram feed and the right van for your actual trip are often not the same vehicle. For full-time living solo or couples, the 144 extended Sprinter or Transit equivalent hits the sweet spot between drivability and livability. For families doing European touring, the Volkswagen California or a Fiat Ducato-based European conversion in the 6-meter range is worth the compromise on interior height in exchange for actual access to the places you're going. And for retirees doing North American highway travel with occasional backcountry access, a Class B on the Sprinter 144 platform gives you the flexibility to park in a hotel lot, run a 50-amp hookup at an RV park, and still get down a decent Forest Service road. The giant Class C and Class A rigs will eventually feel like you're driving your living room. That's a different kind of travel.
The controversial take: new might beat used in 2026. Here's the take that's going to split the comments section, and I'm fine with that, because it's true for a specific buyer profile. In the current market, for buyers who are planning to use their campervan for 5 or more years, buying new might be smarter than buying used. I know that sounds backwards. New vehicles depreciate faster, right? That's the conventional wisdom. But hear me out. When the pandemic used market was inflated, buying new meant instant massive depreciation. That era is over. Current new pricing on Class B campervans in 2026 is back to something approaching rational. Manufacturer incentives have returned. Interest rate structures, particularly in Europe through dealer financing programs, have improved. And here's the key. A new build comes with a full manufacturer warranty. No mystery maintenance history, no previous owner modifications that complicate your systems, and in the US specifically, full depreciation tax benefits if you qualify. The used van that saves you $30K might be carrying $30K in deferred problems you won't discover until month 8. That doesn't mean every buyer should buy new. If you're buying for 1 to 3 years, used makes sense. Let someone else absorb the early depreciation curve and sell before major maintenance cycles hit. But if you're buying to keep, if you're a retiree planning the next decade of travel, or a family making this a long-term lifestyle investment, running the new versus used numbers honestly in 2026 might surprise you. Who should buy now and who should wait? Let me give you a clear breakdown. Buy now if you're a USA buyer who's been waiting out the pandemic price bubble. That correction has happened and inventory is real. You're a European buyer with a specific travel plan for 2026 summer season, and you've identified a well-maintained Ducato, Sprinter, or California build at current market pricing. You've done the inspection work, you know the service history, and you've cross-referenced comps. Wait if you're being rushed by a dealer or private seller creating artificial urgency. Any dealer telling you this is the last one or prices are going up next month in the current market is working against your interests. Good inventory takes time to move right now. That's a buyer's advantage. Also wait if you're in the USA and you haven't decided between a Sprinter and Transit platform. That decision has long-term service implications, and getting it wrong costs more than a few extra weeks of research. The market in 2026 rewards patient, prepared buyers more than any point in the last 5 years. Don't waste that advantage by being in a hurry. One final thing on the Europe side. The used German market right now has genuinely good inventory. German private sellers maintain vehicles meticulously, and the Ducato and Sprinter platforms available there have full EU service coverage. If you're buying in Europe and you haven't looked at the German market through platforms like Mobile.de or Autoscout24, you're potentially leaving significant value on the table. Here's where I land. Avoid the diesel platforms without infrastructure for your geography. Avoid boom-era used pricing that hasn't corrected. Avoid custom conversions you can't verify. Don't buy the van that looks good, buy the van that matches how you actually travel. The worst campervan mistake isn't buying the wrong van, it's buying before you understand the market. In 2026, that excuse no longer exists. One question before you go. Are you team buy new in 2026, or do you think used is still the smart play if you find the right deal? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious where this audience lands on that debate.